Senator Mitt Romney, Republican of Utah and formerly of Massachusetts before he moved to another state, announced Wednesday he will retire from the Senate at the end of his term, dealing moderate Republicans and those opposed to former President Trump a major blow. Romney said in a statement that it's time for a new crop of political leaders to step in. I have spent my last 25 years in public service of one kind or another. At the end of another term, I'd be in my mid-80s, Romney said in the press release. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. They're the ones that need to make the decision that will shape the world they will be living in. The decision by Romney, 76, will all but bring his political career to an end, a career that includes his 2012 general election loss to former President Obama, a term as governor of Massachusetts, and 6 years representing Utah in the Senate. His single term in the upper chamber will be widely remembered for his votes to convict Trump in both of his impeachments, the only Senate Republican to have that distinction. Romney had been weighing a decision on whether to seek a second term for months, and initially said he would wait until October to announce one way or another. Senate GOP sources indicated they were unsurprised yet disappointed with the decision because Romney was in the middle of several high-stakes negotiations during his term in office, highlighted by his work on the bipartisan infrastructure law in 2021. Makes me sad, said Senator Tom Tillis, another member who is commonly involved in major bipartisan talks. The outgoing senator won his 2018 contest with 63% of the vote. He was facing potentially a more difficult re-election contest. Utah State House Speaker Brad Wilson already announced a bid with the support of dozens of conservatives in the state. Trent Saggs, mayor of Riverton, Utah, also rolled out a bid. One Utah GOP operative told The Hill more people will likely consider a bid, including Tim Ballard, the founder and former CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, an anti-sex trafficking organization, the inspiration for the controversial movie Sound of Freedom. The operative also said two big question marks are former Representative Jason Chaffetz and Robert C. O'Brien, who served as Trump's national security advisor at the end of his term. Chaffetz has left the door open to a potential bid, though he has conceded he'd prefer to run for the state's governorship at some point. As for O'Brien, the source noted he recently moved to the Beehive State, which would allow him to run for the office next year. Senator Steve Daines, the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, said in a statement the GOP will nominate a candidate who will keep Utah red in 2024. Romney told the Washington Post his decision was also influenced by what he sees coming down the rails, a 6-year stretch that could be more unproductive than his first term had been, citing the intransigence of House Republicans and a lack of leadership by President Biden and the ex-president. It's very difficult for the House to operate from what I can tell, he told the outlet, and perhaps more importantly, we're probably going to have either Trump or Biden as our next president. And Biden is unable to lead on important matters, and Trump is unwilling to lead on important matters. The sudden announcement seemed to catch some lawmakers off guard. Senate leader Chuck Schumer appeared surprised and informed the news by a reporter during a press conference saying that he will miss him. Trump on Wednesday gloated over Romney's decision, saying it was fantastic news for the U.S., Utah, and the Republican Party. Mitt Romney, sometimes referred to as Pierre the Elector, will not be seeking a second term in the U.S. Senate, where he did not serve with distinction, Trump wrote, in cap locks, might I add. A big primary fight against him was in the offing, but now that will not be necessary. Congrats to all. Make America great again. Romney infamously met with Trump to discuss the possibility of serving as the then upcoming president's Secretary of State. The job ultimately went to Rex Tillerson, arguably one of the worst secretaries of state ever. So when Romney first ran for the Senate, I thought he was obviously not going to be there for the rest of his life. I figured at most he would have 2 terms, and he would have the second one. Basically, he would kind of be like an interim senator. He would be there to hold the seat so that his son, I'm forgetting his name, who lives in the same state, could run for the seat at like a much younger age, and then from there, continue on the family, the Romney political dynasty that was started by his dad George. But he definitely will be remembered. Like, he was already going to be remembered for the 2012 loss to Obama, but the 2 things he did after that, which were the 2016 anti-Trump speech, an unprecedented attack by the most recent former presidential nominee against the front runner for the nomination, and then becoming senator and voting to convict that same person twice, those are things that people will talk about decades from now, 100 years from now, because that's just how irregular it was. But Romney always struck me as someone who kind of like you could tell by the way his term went that he didn't really care one way or the other if he got reelected, by virtue of voting to impeach Trump twice or to convict him rather, and some of his other decisions like supporting Ketanji Brown for the Supreme Court when basically all the other Republicans were against her. He's someone who, at the very least, I can say that this term emerged as one of the few Republicans that actually had many significant differing votes from his party. I've always said that I like Collins and Murkowski because they're pro-LGBT rights in many cases and do acknowledge the environment more so than the other Republicans. And, I like Rand for a lot of the views he has on international issues, but Romney was, I'd say, the least awful person after those three out of any of the Senate Republicans. And looking at Trump's statement is kind of funny because he's like celebrating, like, this is the end of Romney. We are done with him. He has left. He's out of the building. He's gone. It's like, I don't know what he's celebrating because, first of all, Romney is just one vote. The Senate has 100 people at any given time. Romney is one vote that, if anything, is still more conservative than any Democrat would be. And the next Utah senator is going to be a Republican. The Democrats in Utah are a joke, but it's like you're celebrating the loss of one senator who agreed with you on a lot of things, actually. And I guess it's interesting to watch him celebrate that. Like the end of Romney's political career, when you remember that Trump endorsed Romney in 2012 for president, so like to get to that the furtherance of his political career. But also, Trump is at the end of his career too, because whether he wins or loses next year, or even gets the Republican nomination, which it looks like he will, looking at the polling, I don't think anyone believes that there's a chance of him running in 2020. Like if he loses, I don't think he's going to be able to get nominated for the fourth election in a row. So he's at the end of his career too. But that's why it's funny that he's like celebrating Romney, being done or being through. I guess the only other part of this I can really add is that it's interesting to watch a lot of these Republicans who are from like the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, or like mid 2010s, people who got their start in career kind of like reacting to Trump, and just how Romney is someone who I probably wouldn't have thought anything, like if he was just done after he lost to Obama, that would just been the end of him. Nobody would talk about him ever again. But I think he has secured a very significant place in history by opposing Trump as much as he did. Even if it is mainly because he's not he's not a careerist anymore. He has no further extensions to go. And Romney, let's not forget, started his political career running for the Senate in 1994 against Ted Kennedy. And there's something really poetic about the idea that a run for the Senate started his career, and a decision not to run for another term of it has seemingly ended it.